The fleet was massive, an endless wall of alien warships hung in space, their sleek, deadly forms glowing with the promise of destruction. They had come to Earth's solar system, their goal clear: to wipe out humanity and claim the Earth for their own. They had underestimated humanity in ways they could not have imagined. Their ships were equipped with advanced weapons and shields, far beyond what Earth had ever seen. But their biggest mistake was thinking Earth had no defenses left. In the heart of this chaos, amidst the swirling black void, there was one ship, a small, seemingly insignificant vessel that no one had ever taken seriously. It was old, outdated, and to the aliens, a perfect target for destruction. It had been called junk by every observer, rusty and barely functional. But the human crew of the ship knew something the aliens didn't. What seemed like a piece of scrap was, in fact, a nightmare engine designed for a war no one had expected. As the alien fleet closed in, the human ship, the Wraith, powered up. Its engines roared to life, and the ship moved forward with terrifying precision. For a moment, the alien ships paused, unsure of what to make of the human craft. The Wraith was outmatched in size, speed, and firepower. But it had something the aliens didn't, an ancient, forgotten technology that made it far more dangerous than anyone could fathom. A sudden burst of energy shot from the human ship, slamming into the nearest alien vessel with a deafening crack. The alien ship shuddered, its shields barely holding, as if struggling to understand what had just happened. The humans had no time to explain. They were in the middle of a war, and this battle was just beginning. The aliens had seen many ships in their time, but none like this. The Wraith was like a ghost, slipping through their radar with ease, its movements erratic yet deadly. It wasn't just a ship. It was a weapon, a nightmare unleashed upon an enemy who had thought themselves invincible. The fleet's commander, an alien warlord known for his ruthlessness, watched in disbelief. He had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, but now he was about to learn why the human race had been feared for centuries. The Wraith wasn't just another ship, it was a symbol of Earth's will to survive, an engine of destruction powered by desperation and human genius. The warlord ordered an all-out assault, a barrage of weapons aimed directly at the human ship. But the Wraith danced around the incoming fire, dodging with an agility that seemed impossible for such an old craft. The aliens fired, but they couldn't hit it. It was as if the ship was mocking them, its every movement a challenge to their superiority. Inside the Wraith, the crew was ready. Their hearts pounded with the excitement of the fight. They had no illusion about the odds. They were vastly outnumbered. Their ship was barely holding together, but they had one advantage. They were human, and that made them unpredictable. The alien fleet had faced countless enemies, but nothing had prepared them for the ingenuity of Earth's last defenders. With each blast that rang out from the Wraith's cannons, the aliens began to realize that they were not dealing with a mere ship. They were facing a force that refused to die, a weapon they had written off as nothing more than junk. And that was the biggest mistake they could have made. The alien fleet began to close in, determined to finish what they had started. But the humans, now fully aware of what they had, were far from ready to surrender. As the human ship weaved through the battlefield, it became clear this was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for dominance. And the aliens had just picked a fight with the wrong species. The alien warlord paced back and forth. On his flagship, his expression twisted with frustration. His fleet had engaged humanity with overwhelming force, yet this human ship, the Wraith, seemed to mock everything they had thrown at it. Nothing in his vast experience had prepared him for this, a ship that should have been destroyed in the first attack, still intact, still fighting back, and more importantly, still capable of doing unimaginable damage. We have underestimated them, the warlord muttered, his voice low, almost as if speaking to himself. The crew around him stood silent, unwilling to challenge their leader's authority. The warlord's gaze turned to the screen displaying the human ship's location. It was still dancing through the battle, slipping between enemy ships with an almost eerie grace. "Admiral," the warlord barked, turning to his second-in-command. "How is it still evading us? We've sent everything at it. Our best weapons, our most advanced tactics. Why isn't it breaking?" The admiral swallowed, knowing how close his life was to being forfeit. "We don't know, sir. We've analyzed their ship's performance. It shouldn't be able to move like that. The human vessel defies logic." "Logic," the warlord snarled, "doesn't exist in war." He slammed his fist against the console in anger. "Targeted again. This time I want it gone." In the depths of the Wraith, the human crew was fully aware of the danger they were in. The ship groaned under the strain of every maneuver, its age showing in the creaking metal and the occasional flicker of the lights. Yet, the crew's spirits were high. They had survived the initial onslaught, and now they were striking back with everything they had. Captain Marcus Hale, leader of the human crew, gripped the controls tightly, sweat running down his face. His knuckles were white from the force of his grip. "Get ready, everyone. We need to hit them now while they're still reeling from our last attack." His voice was calm, almost too calm for the situation. But the crew had come to trust him. Marcus had led them through impossible odds before, and they had followed him without question. They knew that this was a battle unlike any other one. That they might not survive, but they would fight with everything they had. "All systems are green," reported Lieutenant Jessica Kim, her eyes locked on the control panel in front of her. "We're ready, Captain." "Then let's show them why we're still here," Marcus said, a slight grin on his lips. "Engage the main cannons. We hit them hard and fast." With a thunderous roar, the Wraith's cannons fired once more, this time at a much closer range. The alien ships, still trying to surround them, barely had time to react. The explosion was massive, sending shockwaves through the battle zone. One of the alien ships was engulfed in flames, spinning out of control as it tore through its own fleet. The chaos was only just beginning. The crew of the Wraith barely had time to celebrate before alarms blared throughout the ship. "Incoming fire! Incoming fire!" shouted Ensign Victor Davis, his voice panicked. "They're locking onto us. Brace for impact!" Marcus ordered, his calm demeanor unshaken despite the rising tension. The human ship shuddered violently as a barrage of laser fire struck its hull. The Wraith had its shields up, but they were beginning to flicker. It wouldn't last long under this kind of assault. Marcus tightened his grip on the controls, his mind racing. "We can't keep dodging forever. We need to find a way to fight back something they don't expect." The ship's AI, a voice known only as Echo, spoke up suddenly. "Captain Hale, I suggest activating the nightmare engine." Marcus froze, his heart skipping a beat. The nightmare engine. It was a relic from the ship's original design, a weapon so old, so dangerous, that it had been sealed away, forgotten by most of the crew. But if Echo was suggesting it now, there was no other choice. "The nightmare engine, are you sure, Echo?" Marcus asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Yes, Captain. It is the only weapon capable of defeating this fleet. You have no other options." Marcus made a snap decision. "Activate it now." With a pulse of energy, the Wraith's core began to its engines shifting, vibrating as if awakening from a long slumber. The nightmare engine, a weapon designed not just to destroy ships, but to turn the very fabric of space and time into a weapon, was alive once more. The Wraith shuddered again, but this time it was different. The ship was no longer just moving. Through space it was bending it. The crew felt a strange sensation, as if the laws of physics were suddenly no longer applying in the usual way. The ship accelerated, far beyond anything it should have been capable of, and the alien ships, now caught in its path, were utterly powerless to stop it. "Captain," Jessica gasped, "what's happening? We're moving faster than light." "It's, the nightmare engine," Marcus replied, his voice barely audible over the alarms. "It's not just a weapon. It's a force multiplier. It warps space around us. We're going to tear through them." And with that, the Wraith shot forward, a streak of fire through the blackness of space. The alien fleet, already reeling from the unexpected attack, now had to face something far worse than they could have imagined. The humans had turned the tide. The moment the Wraith activated the Nightmare engine, a shuddering wave of energy rippled through space. Time itself seemed to warp around the ship, as if the very fabric of reality bent under the sheer force of the human vessel's newfound power. The alien fleet, still struggling to react to the unexpected shift in the battle, was now caught in the grip of something far beyond their understanding. Captain Marcus Hale's hands flew over the controls as the ship shot forward, leaving behind a trail of distortion in its wake. The Wraith moved faster than any ship should have, its engines roaring with an intensity that could only be described as primal. It felt as if they were tearing through the very core of space itself, and the alien ships, once a menace to Earth now, seemed like nothing more than prey, helpless in the face of this terrifying new weapon. "All systems are stable," Lieutenant Jessica Kim called out, her voice shaking with the adrenaline rush. We're going faster than any human ship has ever moved before. This is beyond anything we've tested. We're not just moving fast, Kim," Marcus said, his voice low but full of purpose. "We're warping space. Time is bending. They won't be able to catch us." But even with this newfound power, the alien fleet wasn't backing down. The warlord, still commanding his fleet from the flagship, watched in disbelief as the Wraith tore through space. His ships were firing at everything in sight, but none of their weapons could reach the human vessel. They were too slow, too predictable. They were struggling to lock onto a target that was no longer there. The Wraith had become a ghost in the battle, a nightmare slipping through their fingers. "Admiral!" The warlord barked, his patience at an end. This isn't possible. How can they be doing this? How are they warping space like that? We've encountered countless species, but nothing like this." "We don't know, sir," the Admiral replied, a cold sweat forming on his brow. "We're unable to lock onto the target. Their movements are beyond our calculations." "Then you better find a solution, or we'll all be dead," the warlord snarled, his eyes flashing with rage. "Deploy every ship in the fleet. Surround them. We can't let them get away." But even as the warlord's command rang out, the alien ships were already too late. The Wraith, with its newfound ability, had already taken its next step. It wasn't just moving forward, it was now striking back, moving through the alien fleet with terrifying precision. "Fire everything," Marcus ordered. The Wraith's cannons erupted with blasts of energy that tore through the alien fleet, ripping through their shields as if they were made of paper. The alien ships exploded one by one, their hulls disintegrating in a burst of light and fire. The Nightmare engine had given them the edge they needed, turning the tide of the battle. On board the Wraith, the crew was in full battle mode. Every member knew their role, their movements synchronized in a way that only experience and desperation could provide. They were pushing their ship to its limits, but for once, the Wraith felt like more than just an old relic. It was a living weapon, a force to be reckoned with. "Target the flagship," Marcus commanded. His eyes locked onto the alien warlord ship, the largest and most menacing in the fleet. It had been leading the charge, directing the assault, but now it was just another target. The crew's mission was clear: destroy the heart of the enemy strength. The human ship shifted once again, bending space in ways that defied logic. It fired another blast, this one aimed directly at the warlord's flagship. The energy tore through the flagship's shields, and for a moment, everything seemed to stop inside the alien flagship. The warlord's eyes widened as the screen in front of him crackled with static. He could feel the inevitable coming. "Prepare for impact," he muttered, but his voice lacked the authority it had held before. It was too late. The nightmare engine had taken the fight out of his hands, and now his ship was collapsing under the weight of the human assault. With a final blast, the flagship was no more. It erupted into a violent explosion, its massive frame splitting apart as the Wraith's final strike hit home. The rest of the alien fleet faltered, caught in a wave of panic. The heart of their forces had been destroyed, and the remnants of their ships were nothing but debris in space. But the battle wasn't over yet. The alien warlord, though defeated in one sense, still had a trick up his sleeve. His flagship may have been destroyed, but his fleet was still vast. And he wasn't one to give up so easily. From the depths of space, a new signal came through. Reinforcements. Marcus, his heart pounding from the battle's intensity, barely had time to process the news. We've got more coming in. How many? Echo. The ship's AI responded immediately. Several dozen ships, Captain. It's a new wave of reinforcements. They've likely called for backup after seeing the destruction of their flagship. Marcus cursed under his breath. We don't have enough firepower to face that many. But he wasn't about to back down. Not now. Get ready, crew. We're not done yet. The Wraith had dealt a crushing blow to the alien fleet, but the war was far from over. New forces were on their way, and they would be even more dangerous. But the humans had learned one thing in this battle. They were capable of more than anyone had ever imagined. And as the new wave of enemies approached, Marcus was determined to show them just how far the human spirit could push itself. Asterisk. The moment Marcus Hale saw the incoming reinforcements on the ship's scanners, his heart sank. The first wave of the alien fleet had been devastating, but now they were about to face an entirely new challenge. The reinforcements were larger, more advanced, and appeared to have a much more organized attack strategy. Captain, Jessica Kim called out from the control panel, her voice tense. The new wave is massive. We're looking at least 40 ships, each of them heavily armed. They're surrounding us. Marcus gritted his teeth. They had barely survived the first wave, and now they had to face an enemy that had adapted. Echo, he said, turning to the ship's AI. What are options? The nightmare engine is still functioning at full capacity, Captain. However, given the increased number of enemies, it will take a heavier toll on the ship. The Wraith's systems are under extreme stress. Marcus hesitated, his eyes scanning the view ahead. He could already see the alien ships forming a tight formation, moving in perfect synchronization, their weapons charging in unison. They were no longer the chaotic force from before. They had regrouped, strategized, and were now coming at them with cold precision. We don't have the luxury of waiting, Marcus said. Activate the nightmare engine again. We'll have to fight our way through. With a deep, mechanical hum, the Wraith's engines powered up once more. The entire ship seemed to vibrate under the weight of the force they were unleashing. The crew braced themselves for the inevitable surge of energy that would follow. But this time, the Wraith's engines weren't just distorting space. They were bending time itself, as if the very concept of the battle was twisting in ways that defied the laws of nature. The ship moved in erratic, unpredictable directions, dodging laser blasts and debris with terrifying precision. We've lost their lock, Ensign Davis reported, his voice filled with disbelief. They can't track us anymore. Good, Marcus muttered, feeling the rush of power as the ship slipped through the alien lines. The Wraith was no longer just a ship, it was a force of nature. A weapon of destruction that no one, not even the alien warlord, could predict. As the human ship tore through the enemy fleet, blasting through ship after ship, the alien ships began to break apart. They were fast, but the Wraith was faster. The nightmare engine made them impossible to hit, weaving through the onslaught like a phantom in the void of space. But just as the humans began to think victory was within reach, a powerful blast from one of the alien warships hit the Wraiths. The impact sent shockwaves through the ship, rattling every member of the crew to their core. The shields flickered, struggling to maintain their integrity. The sound of alarms filled the air, and the floor beneath them seemed to groan under the pressure. "We've lost the port side shields," Lieutenant Kim shouted. "Hull integrity is at 50% and falling fast." "We need to repair the shields now," Marcus said through gritted teeth, his mind working fast. "Davis, get to engineering and assist with the repairs. Kim, I need you to fire back at them. Take out their support ships first." "Understood, Captain," Kim replied, her voice steady even as panic swirled in the air. She turned to the control panel, her fingers flying over the buttons as she aimed at the nearest enemy ship. The Wraith's guns roared again, sending blasts of energy that struck the alien ships, their hulls burning as the energy pierced through their defenses. But for every alien ship they took down, 2 more appeared to take its place. The reinforcements kept coming, a never-ending tide of destruction. On the bridge, Marcus could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. They were outnumbered, their resources dwindling with every passing second. The nightmare engine was powerful, but it was also taxing the ship's systems to their limits. They couldn't keep this up forever. "We can't keep doing this," Marcus muttered to himself, frustration building in his chest. "If we don't break through soon, we're done." Just as the enemy seemed poised to overwhelm them, Marcus's eyes narrowed in determination. There was one thing they hadn't tried yet, a final, desperate maneuver. "Kim," he said, "prepare to execute a full-speed warp jump. We'll go straight through the center of their formation." Kim looked up at him, surprised. "Captain, are you sure about that? The jump will put even more strain on the ship." "I know," Marcus interrupted, "but it's the only way we're going to get out of this alive. We have to gamble everything on this." With no time to lose, Kim initiated the sequence. The Wraith shuddered as it accelerated, pushing forward at breakneck speed. The nightmare engine hummed louder than ever before, its power fueling the ship. As it surged forward into the heart of the alien formation, the crew held on tight, bracing for the violent forces they were about to unleash. "Brace for impact," Marcus shouted. The Wraith shot forward like an arrow, its engines screaming as they cut through the space around them. The alien ships tried to react, but they were too slow. The Wraith was upon them in an instant, slamming through their ranks like a battering ram. Sparks flew as the human ship ripped through hulls, sending the alien fleet into disarray. The ship jolted violently as it cut through the heart of the alien formation, but somehow, miraculously, they survived the impact. As they tore through the remaining alien ships, the Wraith emerged on the other side, battered but still intact. "We did it," Kim whispered, almost in disbelief. Marcus let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. "For now." But as they looked out into the vast expanse of space, the crew knew that the battle was far from over. The alien warlord would not stop until Earth was conquered. The second wave had been defeated, but many more threats loomed on the horizon. The silence that followed the chaos of their daring warp jump was almost deafening. The crew of the Wraith found themselves floating in the eye of the storm, the wreckage of the alien fleet scattered around them. The ship's systems hummed with the strained energy of the nightmare engine, still glowing with an eerie power. It had saved them this time, but the price was evident. "Captain," Jessica Kim called, her voice barely above a whisper. "We've taken significant damage. The ship's systems are overloaded, and we've lost most of the external sensors. We can't track their movements anymore." Marcus Hale's mind raced as he surveyed the damaged controls, the once pristine monitors now flickering with red warning lights. The ship was holding together, but just barely. They had escaped the second wave, but the Wraith was on the brink of collapse. "We need to find a safe place to regroup," Marcus said, his voice grim. "Echo, plot a course. We need to find a way to get the ship into a position where we can make repairs, and figure out our next move. We are at the edge of the asteroid belt, Captain. Echo responded, the calm, neutral tone of the AI in stark contrast to the tension in the air. I recommend a nearby asteroid cluster as a possible hiding spot. It would provide some cover, but it's a risk. There are too many blind spots in the area. We may be vulnerable. Then we take the risk, Marcus decided. We don't have any other options. Kim, get us there. The crew scrambled into action, each one focused on their tasks as the Wraith limped toward the asteroid belt. The ship groaned with every movement, as if protesting its continued existence in the face of overwhelming odds. Every jump, every turn felt like it could be the one that pushed them past the point of no return. Yet, they kept moving forward. Humanity's last ship was battered, but it was not broken dot as they entered the asteroid field. The ship's movements grew more erratic. The field of rocks was dense, and even the Wraith's advanced maneuvering system struggled to avoid collisions. Every so often, the ship would lurch violently as it barely dodged a large asteroid. We're too close. Kim shouted, her eyes wide with alarm. If we don't pull up now, we're going to hit. But Marcus was already giving the command. We don't have time for that. Keep us moving. They needed cover fast. The asteroid belt offered them the best chance of hiding, but it was also a deadly obstacle course. One wrong move, one stray asteroid, and they would be gone. Marcus could feel the weight of every decision pressing down on him. The fate of his crew, of humanity, rested on the edge of a razor-sharp blade. Then, an alarm blared. A new wave of enemy ships appeared on the radar, just as Marcus had feared. They're here, Kim said, her voice thick with disbelief. How did they track us? The alien fleet had caught up faster than they anticipated. The warlord was relentless. It seemed that no matter how many ships the humans destroyed, more kept coming. Captain, I'm reading new ships more advanced, more powerful than anything we've faced before, Echo reported. They've deployed an advanced cloaking technology, and their energy signatures are fluctuating. It's likely they've adapted based on our previous moves. We can't keep running from them forever, Marcus said, his jaw tight. He knew the truth. The ship was too damaged to escape a prolonged fight. They had been running on borrowed time, and now that time was up. He glanced at the crew, their faces weary but resolute. They had all made it this far because they refused to give up, and Marcus knew that if they were going to survive, they needed to strike back and strike hard. Kim, get us out of the belt as quickly as possible. Take us to open space, he commanded. We'll make our stand there. Captain, are you sure about this? Jessica asked, uncertainty creeping into her voice. If we leave the asteroid field, we'll be exposed. We'll be sitting ducks. We don't have a choice, Marcus replied, his voice firm. We can't hide anymore. They'll hunt us down in here. We need to fight while we still have the chance. He turned to the crew. We've survived this long because of one thing. We don't follow their rules. We make our own. We've taken their best shots and still come back swinging. They may have reinforcements, but we have something they don't: human ingenuity. We fight smarter, not harder. The Wraith shuddered as it began to leave the asteroid field. Marcus's hand tightened on the control lever as the ship slipped out of cover, its sensors flickering back to life. The alien fleet, now positioned in front of them, was advancing with the speed and ferocity of a storm. There was no going back now. Kim, full speed ahead, Marcus said. Let's give them everything we've got. The human ship shot forward with all the power the nightmare engine could muster, its engines glowing a fiery blue as it accelerated toward the alien fleet. But even as they closed in on their enemies, Marcus knew the fight would be their toughest yet. We're going to need more than just the nightmare engine to survive this, Marcus muttered to himself, his mind racing with possibilities. He had to rely on every ounce of human ingenuity he could muster. The fate of Earth rested in his hands, and he wasn't about to let humanity's final chance slip away. The Wraith hurtled through space, its engines roaring as it charged straight toward the heart of the alien fleet. The Nightmare engine's energy was burning bright, but the ship's hull was weakening under the strain. Every move felt like a gamble, each decision a razor's edge between survival and destruction. Marcus Hale, captain of humanity's last hope, had never faced odds like this. They had escaped the asteroid field, but now they were exposed. The alien fleet was ready, its newly reinforced ships advanced and formidable. "Captain, we're in range," Jessica Kim said, her voice tight with focus. "They're locking onto us, ready for the final assault." Marcus glanced at the main display, watching as the alien fleet grew larger on the screen, their weapons powering up. The ship's shields were holding, but barely. The Wraith had been through too much. The Nightmare engine was a weapon, but it was also wearing them down every time they used it. They were risking their own lives, but there was no turning back now. "All hands," Marcus spoke over the comms, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "We fight now or we die trying. Remember why we're here. Humanity isn't just fighting for survival. We're fighting for the future, our future." He looked to his crew, his eyes meeting theirs in silent understanding. Each of them had known this moment was coming. There would be no reinforcements this time. They were alone in the vastness of space, up against a fleet that had already proven it could wipe them out in a heartbeat. "Kim," Marcus continued, "prepare to fire on their command ship. We take down the leader, and the rest will fall. If we don't get this right, it's over." The Wraith surged forward again, darting between blasts of energy as alien ships tried to encircle them. The air was thick with tension, and the crew held their breath as Marcus expertly navigated through the chaos. "Target locked," Kim said, her fingers flying over the controls. Firing. The Wraith's cannons exploded with a deafening roar, their energy blasts ripping through the emptiness of space. The first few shots landed on the alien command ship, but its shields held firm. The Wraith's weapons weren't strong enough. Marcus knew they needed more firepower. He needed something that would break through. "Echo," he called. "We need to override the weapon's power limiters. Push the ship's core to full power." The AI responded without hesitation. "Understood, Captain. Power output is being redirected. This will cause significant damage to the Wraith's internal systems." "Do it," Marcus commanded. The ship's systems groaned as the power surged through the Wraith. For a moment, it felt like everything inside the ship was on the verge of breaking. The energy shields flickered, and the crew felt a tremor in the floor beneath their feet. The ship was screaming in protest, but they had no other choice. With a mighty roar, the Wraith fired again, this time with more power than ever before. The energy blast was like a laser beam, cutting through space with an almost terrifying speed. The alien command ship, despite its reinforced shields, couldn't withstand the intensity of the strike. It faltered, and then, in a brilliant burst of light, exploded in a violent chain reaction. The shockwave rocked the Wraith, sending the crew reeling. "Direct hit," Kim shouted, her face lighting up with a mix of relief and disbelief. "The command ship's gone. It's gone." The alien fleet was in disarray. Without their command ship, the remaining warships lost their coordination. It was chaos. The aliens had been expecting to wipe out humanity once and for all, but now they were left scrambling, their systems falling apart, their ships drifting aimlessly. The humans had done it. They had destroyed the heart of the fleet. But Marcus knew it wasn't over yet. The alien forces were still numerous, still dangerous. They were wounded, but they weren't dead. He had to finish this. "Prepare for another round of fire," Marcus ordered, his voice calm despite the storm raging outside. "We finish them off, right here, right now." The crew sprang into action. Kim fired again, targeting the alien ships that were trying to regroup. The Wraith's weapon systems, now overloaded, fired rapidly, tearing through the alien fleet with deadly accuracy. The remnants of the enemy ships broke apart in the void, their remains becoming nothing more than floating debris. But even as they fought, a new danger emerged. The warlord's flagship, which had been hiding in the fringes of the fleet, now revealed itself, charging toward them with a new weapon. The warlord himself had survived. He was coming to finish what he had started. "We're not done yet, are we?" Kim asked, her voice filled with dread. Marcus felt the weight of the moment. The warlord's flagship was massive, its weaponry stronger than anything they had faced. And the ship's shields were still intact. They couldn't win a battle of firepower. They needed a strategy, something the warlord would never see coming. "We'll use their arrogance against them," Marcus said, determination setting in. "Kim, prepare to initiate evasive maneuvers. I'm going to get close enough to board their ship." Kim's eyes widened in disbelief. "Board their ship?" "Captain, I know what I'm doing," Marcus interrupted. "The Wraith's systems are too damaged. The warlord is coming at us with everything. If we fight head-on, we're going to lose. But if we board their flagship, we can end this. We'll take the warlord out from the inside." The crew exchanged uncertain glances, but there was no time for hesitation. They were committed. Marcus ordered the Wraith to charge forward, using the last of their power to hurtle toward the warlord's flagship. The ship's sensors were barely functioning, and the ship groaned under the strain, but Marcus didn't care. He had made his decision. This was humanity's final chance. The Wraith closed in on the alien flagship, and with a violent jolt, it rammed into the side of the massive warship, sending sparks flying as it tore through the metal hull. The human crew spilled out, weapons in hand, ready to finish what they had started.